Hello, welcome everyone in the second webinar of the series. My name is Łukasz, and today I'm behind the BinarApps profile hosting this event. We're going to talk about software testing and costs connected to it. BinarApps is a company with great experience in building digital products. We have been working in various branches with clients from all over the world for more than 6 years now. We work fully remote with our clients and support them in their products development at every stage. Of course, this includes testing. And testing is the subject of today's webinar, as you probably already noticed. We want to talk about it more because it's a product development phase that often seems as not important. We really don't recommend that. You will see why during this presentation. Okay, we can go to the presentation. A few rules for today's meeting. Please feel free to chat all over the time. If you want to ask a question, use the question options in the chat. Pressing the question mark button. We'll make a Q&A session after the presentation, and we'll answer all the questions then. The recording also will be available after the webinar. We can start now. Please welcome Olena Starikova, project manager at BinarApps, who has been a tester in the past. She's going to share his insights on why testing shouldn't be skipped. Olena, the stage is yours.
Hi guys, it's really nice to have you all here. I'm really glad that you made it and participated in this event. Well, a couple of words about what we're going to cover. So we're going to look through the real cases of day-to-day experience, how testing is, what testing influences and why is it really a big deal? How much can you waste on not testing applications as rigorously as you should have. And I'm also going to introduce some very nice statistics. So if you wonder what the methodology was or where the statistics come from or stuff like this, please feel free to say "I" and text a message. I will definitely return to it in the Q&A session. So without further ado, let's probably start and make the ball rolling. Okay, so when you think of testing or when people think about testing, what comes to their mind? Is it something, I was wondering, is it something, positive experience that you may have, or do developers only think, oh, testing, okay, they will only, buzz about things that they think they found, but they didn't because our code is perfect. So let me just give you one number about user experience in mobile application development. Up to 80% of mobile apps are being deleted within 3 days after they were installed. So there is such a metric in mobile game development as daily active user, DAU. So they are measured normally 3 times. It's first day, 7th day, and 30th day. On the first day, normally people download the application and have the basic impression about it. On the 7th day, it's normally a turning point when people understand or get the idea of the application and decide whether or not they're going to use it further on. Well, on the 30th day, normally you only have loyal users. So the 80%, up to 80% of the applications will be deleted till day 3. So the 3 days and 7 days period is really crucial to hook up the users. So why is this so dramatic? Why are people only having 20% of their mobile games that they have downloaded? Number one reason behind it is defect and bad user experience. This may result into different subjects. For example, it can be vague interface, or it can be security defects that people understand or see. Normally ordinary interface. So something that they did not like, they delete the application instantly. Okay, so just imagine it's the end of October and your application release is going to be in the end of November. You're going to release an online shop, yeah, and only developing an online store, maybe not you, someone else, developing an online store, and you want people to get presents from you. So they want to buy online. Because you're in the United States, as perfectly some people know, more than 60% of the US consumers buy holiday gifts online and around a week or two before Christmas. So you need to release in the end of November. You're doing waterfalls, so you have the stages one after another. You have 5 developers. But in the end of October, one developer left, other one got ill, so you have two juniors and you have one senior developer, let's say. So you need to increase his hours. You need to, well, yes, that's crucial. You really have to release in the end of November, and it's Christmas time, so, well, you can't really postpone the deadline. So you decide what to do. You think, okay, we have some testing, but I'm pretty sure about the quality of our software. Yeah, we'll be doing some tests, but let's face the truth. We really need to have something. So you increase the hours of the third developer, the third senior, and developers did a good job. They did unit test and did some explorative testing. Mostly tests passed, and which didn't pass, they fix, of course. So it is a very, very important release, and Christmas is near. So the project manager says, well, I will take the risk, and no one is actually going to use all the functionalities, right? So we're going to skip the system test. We did all the testing, but okay, let's just do without it. So a week before Christmas, you expect 18,000 revenue, and you see that the moment that you expected it, 42,000 people visited the store, and they brought actually nothing to you because there was a defect which did not allow them to finalize the purchase. Well, it was a very bad user experience. You lost the expected revenue, which was 18,000, and adding an insult to an injury, a local newspaper wrote about this failure. So what actually happened? What did the situation lose? Well, the costs can be direct and indirect. The direct that you would say, yeah, that's time and material, that, for example, you pay the developers, you pay the testers, you, allocated costs there. Infrastructure, such as, servers that you deploy to the, sorry guys, the infrastructure, like such, computers, things that you may use for the production of it. However, there are costs that you might not notice. Public failures that actually happen have a horrible impact on your business. For example, people know that your business sucks, so they don't buy from you. A sponsor sees that your product failed, so next time he will think twice before he or she gives you money. Service desk. Normally, if you have a software failure and you have a service desk, people start complaining about it and say, yeah, yada yada, that doesn't work. So the load on the service desk grows up dramatically. Well, something that not many people think of is your clients' losses. If you let down your clients also lost money. He or she can actually sue you, but what's worse, they will never return to you if they brought money to you, because it's horrible user experience for them. Well, that's actually fine. However, I personally know people who suffered from poor testing. They had an 18-month project with around 50 people engaged. However, the application that they were about to test, because they were testers, was so bad that they only worked for 35% of the working time, which means, on one hand, that the client they were testing for lost 65% of money invested. That's one thing. The second thing is 35% of working time means that out of 18 months, they actually did nothing for around a year. So if you're doing nothing for a year, that's quite a horrible experience for you, because you come to work, you do nothing, you don't develop, you don't grow. So many of those people actually left. So it's additional money for the company which hired them, which means trainings, which means salaries. And if a person leaves, you need to pay extra money to train another one. So bad testing is actually closer than you think. And whatever your role is, no one is actually, insured from having really bad user experience. And this may also influence your business. What is worse? Okay, more things that you might have thought of or heard of. Night Capital. This actually happened on the 1st of August, 2012. So if you Google Night Capital, if you put it into the search engine and look through it, the first thing that you will see is Night Capital glitch. This is something that happened that time. So technically, in the morning when the stock was open, something went wrong. The script from Night Capital sent more than 4 million stock orders in less than an hour, which actually resulted into that stock orders should have been sent over several days. However, they were sent just like that. It resulted into horrible things. First, money loss. A lot of money loss. They need to they need to revert the deals. Yeah, they need to fix the issue. It cost actually them 440 millions with several days of it. So actually, they lost 10 millions a minute. Can you imagine $10 million a minute loss? So what is more, their shares lost about 75% of what they cost, which makes it pretty much. So this happened how many years ago? 8 years ago, and Google still remembers it so well, and it still is so painful for Night Capital that it is on the first position of the result of Night Capital when you Google it. So they should have tested better. So what actually was the reason? Did the developers do such a bad job, or testers, they didn't find this defect? Well, actually they did. The funny thing is they actually did, but the fix was not deployed at one of the servers, and no one actually checked how the deployment went. So they skipped one of the phases of testing when you check how the deployment went. So that actually resulted into loss of 10 millions a minute. Sometimes now I'm going to speak about an issue which is quite controversial. You may think differently of it. It can. There are many reasons that could be behind it. However, in an official report, one of the reasons that could have made this happen was a software issue. So on the 28th of August, 2009, a man called 911, and he said that his car speeded up to 160 kilometers per hour, and the brakes don't work. So the car has no brakes. This resulted into a dramatic car crash, where 4 people were killed, including 1 child. So it was the problem that Toyota claims was one of the problems was a lag in the anti-lock brake system. So what Toyota did, they shortened the gas pedal and uploaded a new version of an onboard computer, which overrides electronic gas pedal when the brakes are pressed. So technically, you press the brakes and the brakes don't work, and the car just speeds up, which actually resulted into that car crash. In 1910, Toyota recalled around 9 million cars, which cost them $9 billion. What's more, around 90 people were killed within 5 years in the similar circumstances when the car speeds up uncontrollably. So, which makes it not only money loss, but what's worse, human loss. However, some people claim that there was a mechanical issue, but the debates are still ongoing. one of the official reasons why that happened was still a problem with the onboard computer. Okay, now one more thing, which is a bit funnier, I guess. I mean, funnier because no one died. On the 22nd of July, 1962, Mariner 1 was traveling to Venus, self-destroyed after 290 seconds after start. So it also cost them lots of money, which was $18.5 million in 1962. So in our times money, that costs around $158.6 million. What happened? The funny thing that it wasn't something connected to Apollo. No one died. It was nothing connected to Apollo, which was a mechanical issue. Here, it was actually a software issue, and it was a very neat one, a pretty one. So in 290 seconds, there was a command which was sent from ground control, which caused the Mariner to self-destroy. The cause of it, the root cause, was a missing hyphen in the command. So Mariner 1 misinterpreted the command from ground control because of missing hyphen inside the code. So that's really important to test. Okay, so well, it's all very nice. However, how much? I mean, how much does testing cost? How much are the cost of fixing the defects? Well, I have two news. One is good news, and the other one is bad news. We'll start from the last one. So, if you have a look at all of those graphs, I have purposefully downloaded it from the internet. They all have a couple of things in common. The worst thing that they have in common is there's no scale. If you have a look at the graph, you see that you don't know where it starts, where it finishes. I mean, is it zero? Is it zero on the axis crossing? Because normally, if you've been doing presentations and you do the scaling and stuff, you know that not always you start from zero. Sometimes you start, I don't know, from 50 and the end is 80. So it actually depends. So the worst thing is there is no mathematical model that tells you how much you should spend on testing or how much the defect fix cost will be. So there are lots of things that would influence your fixed cost. First one is industry. So it depends on how complex your industry is, how regulated your industry is, how security critical it is, then how well you organize your work, how well what is the workflow within your company. Yes, what is your model? Is it agile? Is it waterfall? Is it V model? That all add or take off some cost from your defect fix cost. Also, there are different pieces of codes. Of course, some of them are more complex, some of them are less complex. If you have a more complex piece of code, there is a higher probability that there will be more defects. I know that there are testers among you. I believe there are. So you know this type of things, how it goes. So I have shown you 3 estimations. The thing I have put them so you could all together, so you could compare them. So for every $1 that you normally spend on the requirements phase, doesn't mean that the defect costs $1. No, it means that if you spend, for example, $15 on the requirement phase, you will spend X 15, on each of the next phases. For example, here you see that normally it costs 10 times in production or maintenance phase. Why so? Basically, it's not only because you have to test it all sometimes, depending on your business, your failures, as we learned a couple of minutes ago, can cause other businesses' failures. And those costs, which are on those defects that are on the production, can cause you much more pain that you can expect. So depending on your application and if it is complex or not, how many defects it can potentially have, well, it will be different cost. So if you have any questions as for those estimations, please feel free to ask. So as I said, normally there are, depending on the complexity of the code, depending on the seniority of the developer, there will be from up to 25 defects in 1,000 lines of code. This statistic I took from Steve McConnell and his book Code Complete, which I seriously recommend. It's a very interesting one. So it doesn't mean that you take 100 lines of code and say, okay, like I have to find 17 defects. It doesn't work this way. No, it works this way that, for example, you have one piece of code which can be faultless because it's easy, because the senior developer did it. It was like, it was okay. However, another piece of code, it can contain much more defects than that. It depends on many things, and you need to understand that the more brain you put into your work, the more adequate your measures are, the less defects your application likely may have. So let's go to another thing. I will tell you what to pay attention for. Maybe there is some lifecycle phase, the product lifecycle phase. So on the requirement phase, you would rather like to have a test plan, some analysis of the requirements. Maybe you would like to have the test validation metrics, to know the coverage and what are you going to test and what not, what to pay attention to. And perhaps you're thinking about some automation. Yes, exactly. You are thinking about it on the requirements phase, so that when you do it through, you will not have such problems that you don't know what your application is doing and what the acceptance criteria are. So additionally, the cost for fixing the defect is so low because you're normally paying for meetings and redoing the requirements. Because if the tester does the static analysis and finds the defect on this phase, well, what you rewrite the requirements, or you have some meetings to read the documentation through. Well, development phase, well, you pay only for developers and testers' time. So here you would think of creating the test data, writing the test cases and executing them. And if you had some automation, you can run the scripts. Okay, so here, if you're using a couple of modules and you'd like to integrate them, which you normally do, the cost of defect consists of fixing the defect at high level, retesting, testing again, fixing perhaps again. So here you just run the integration test that you have already planned at the requirement phase. Production, well, when production comes near, you normally pay for a lot of things. So you find the defects, you retest them, you fix them, you test them again, you deploy them. If there is a help desk, you pay for the help desk. If there is an escalation process, you pay for the escalation process, because the time of the managers and hundreds of people. That's why that's also quite a big deal. So what to do here at this phase, you might think about running regression tests. Well, and also some changing the regression test and running it again from time to time. And if you introduce another pieces of code, of course, you have to do the regression. Don't forget about that. So the general idea behind it is don't forget to, well, I have some tips for you if you like. So if you practice test-driven development, so meaning you first write the test, and then you you fix the test, and then you understand what the product should look like, should be. You should also think about going agile. Why am I speaking about it? Because in the traditional or waterfall or V models, you have one after another, one activity after another. You do the development, you do the requirements, you do the development, then you do the testing, then you do the development again and fixing the defects. So if you're doing agile, it means that time to market is reduced. So you take one defect, you simultaneously test and develop things. So you introduce a tester into your team, and because of this, you will have, how can I put it? Because they work together and there is immediate reaction of the tester, the time to market shortens and your costs also go down. Change the tests. Why is this important? I mean, we wrote the test at the requirements phase, and why do we have to change them? Because everything passed. My product is faultless. It's okay. Actually, the next one is grinding through regression. If you grind, if you grind through your tests and change them, for example, you have some product, and here you have the regression for tests. You grind. Yeah, here you have no defects at the moment when you grind. However, if you change the test, there are still some defects left. So if you change it, for example, like this, you find new defects which fall into your new test. So yeah, test find defects, but it doesn't mean that one test will find all the defects. Rewrite the tests and you will find more defects, or you might waste of time. It depends on your attitude, because you need to calculate the risk, and then according to this calculation, you should change or not change test, or spend more time or less time on testing. It actually all of this depends, but you need to test a lot. Refactor. I suggest that you should refactor very early as you can and often, because if you have another person who's looking inside your code, and also applies to code review, you have another person who looks into your code, simplifies your code. Well, more people can find defects which on the static analysis phase. Well, and make sure that you have an exception tackling tool, which will provide you information from production. Well, on different stages actually. However, from production it's also critical, because not all of the users will nag about their negative user experience. It's very important to receive information before negative information comes to you. So, officially. So work proactively and make sure that you know what's going on in your production. Actually, it was quite fast. I thought it would take a bit more time. However, I believe that you have a couple of questions. You may, okay, hi, mainly hi, okay. You may ask them anytime. Please feel free to PM me, PM, okay, to send me a message. I would gladly help you if you have any doubts or issues. Don't forget that you can ask and and have a discussion if something is interesting. So now I guess it's a moment when I open this presentation for discussions. So if you have any questions at all, I would really appreciate you asking the questions. If you disagree with something, if you want to ask about something more, just typo, and it will be great to have you. Thank you, guys. You were an awesome audience coming to the Q&A session. Okay, just a second. I see that there are some questions. Okay, just a moment. First in, first out. How to make automation tests in Scrum projects would change a lot. How to make automation test cases in Scrum project? Do you mean unit tests? Okay, if you mean unit tests, normally you would have developers that do their unit tests themselves and it runs through. If you mean automation that, automation for regression, well, at the phase when you plan your testing, you write your automation scripts. Well, that's actually it. In Scrum, I believe that you still have to devote time for and reserve time for testing and for writing the test scripts. So, to tell you the truth, I didn't have much experience with automation in Scrum. We mainly had manual developers working with Scrum. However, I think it's a really good idea to bring this to light. So sorry, Michał, I'm not sure I answered your question right. However, if you have, okay, there is Go Live, which changes every 2 weeks. Michał, have you thought about every 2 weeks? Oh my God. Have you thought about having regression automated? I mean, the regression, for example, that you may use on production and grinding it through. I'm not sure if you would need to have automation. I mean, it depends on how much time you want to spend on automating the scripts, right? So you need to be really mindful about it. I had, but I'm only one from QA. Okay. Ask your PM why you need automation. I mean, automation is good for reducing time to market, but if your time to market is only once in 2 weeks, I mean, does it really make sense to reduce it even more? Because automation is normally increases the cost of the project, and I only see it as additional cost, but I don't know the logic behind your PM. So not sure if I can tell you why Scrum should have test automation. But it's a good idea that you told me that, so that I will read about it a bit more. Oh, sorry. Back to because we're having a discussion between Michał and me. He says there is no logic, no technical PO. Okay, I think that if you're having Scrum, it's an idea to have an open dialogue between you and your PO. And if the team says, or you as a representative of testing, there is a reason behind your words. I'm sure he needs to listen to what you're saying. So POs and PMs are sometimes don't have technical background. That's true. So those guys, such as you, Michał, I think they need to make sure that you're heard. Okay, I think it's a comment. If you can write scripts, your own script, just write them for each story until no. Not sure if this is Scrum. However, it may make sense. It may make sense. Okay. Mieszko says, any numbers, case studies. You mean that the case studies for testing? How much testing you spend for testing? The estimations that I shown you are taken from yes, the real cost of not testing your app. Just as I told you, there is no mathematical model. There are many accepted mathematical model. I have looked through different ones. However, they're all imperfect because it depends on your organization, depends on the code that you're writing, industry that you work for, and the ones that I can offer you are those estimations which are done by the Commerce of Chamber of the US and the IBM and the researchers. So but they are not the last logic behind it. Normally, you would have for each defect, for each dollar that you spent on requirements, you would have 100 times more money spent on production or post-production. So that can be the real cost. However, this implies that your structure is similar to the ones that you had on presentation, like IBM, for example. Just think about it, that in production it will be very, 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 very expensive, and on requirements it takes much less effort and much less money for that. So no one will actually give you real defect cost, because there is no such thing as cost per defect. I mean, there is such a thing, but this metric is not really valid, because there are different cases. Because if each defect, how can I put it? If you have, for example, 10 defects in one area, it will cost you less for comparing to one defect in another area, because defect clustering, fixing defect clustering is a bundle. So you pay less for a bundle. That's I guess, if this answers your question. Okay. Any way of figuring out the real cost in my environment? Actually, I would base on the statistical data that you had previously. I mean, how many defects have been found on production, for example, and how much the defect cost. I mean, for example, you have found last year in your application, you have found, let's say, 15 defects. You need to understand that, track the time that the developers and testers spent retesting, testing, deploying it, fixing it, and stuff like this. So you calculate it all. You see if there are any external additional costs, like, I don't know, your risk department, for example, or compliance department says that because of this, they estimate this failure in this and this sum. You also added there. So you can, divide all of this per 13 defects or 15 defects, depending on how many you found. However, as I said, the bad thing is the bad news is that there is no mathematical model. You need to calculate it yourself. There are many different ways of doing this, but there is no universal truth. Okay. I hope I answered your questions. The question, if I didn't, please feel free to tag below. Okay. Yeah, statistics is true. Statistics is everything. It's something that I strongly believe in, and no one knows your organization better than you yourself. So take the historical data and analyze it. So depending on what you receive, you will know the cost in your organization, because it will be really different depending on many things. Okay, guys, it's really time for your questions. I will mute myself for a second so that my colleague can proceed.
Thank you, Olena. If there are other questions, please feel free to make it. Before we go, I would like to remind you that this is our second webinar. There's more to come. I will leave a link in the chat where you can check the upcoming webinars. Next one is going to take place on 17th of June. We're going to discuss how to build teams that always get the stuff done. You're really all invited to join. Thank you all. One more time, we'll be broadcasting from Co-work Hub, a co-working space located in the center of Łódź, where we organize our BinarApps meetings. Thank you, Co-work Hub, for your hospitality. See you all at the next webinar.
Thank you very much, guys. You can always have a look. You can always text me, PM me. We can always figure out something. However, I like the idea about writing test scripts when you have go live every 2 weeks. It was stunning. Thank you very much, guys. You are awesome. Thanks a lot. Take care. Koniec.